to see and speak directly to a person who escaped from a prison believed to be impossible to break out from, to connect with tribal communities living deep inside forests, completely cut off from the outside world and unknown knowledge until now, to travel alone mysteriously across the seven seas and conquer the oceans. These were only some of the dreams seen by an Israeli citizen named Yossi Ghinsberg. But eventually, in search of a treasure, he reaches the Amazon forest, where he gets isolated. While telling this much, one may wonder if this actually happened or if it's just a fictional story. But it is neither a myth nor a legend. It is a true story. Today, I'm going to talk about the real story of Yossi Ghinsberg, the person whose life inspired the movie Jungle, which itself inspired books like Back from Tuichi and Laws of the Jungle. Yossi Ghinsberg was an Israeli citizen. Once, he read the autobiography of a man named Henry Charrière called Papillon. Henry Charrière was a convicted murderer. He denied the charges but was proven guilty in court and was transferred to a notorious prison called Devil's Island, a harsh penal colony in the French territory, known for being nearly impossible to escape from. However, he escaped from that prison, and only after that wrote his autobiography. Yossi Ghinsberg read this autobiography. The book spoke about some tribal communities living deep inside forests in various parts of the world, groups completely disconnected from the outside world. After reading this, Ghinsberg developed a strong desire to meet Henry Charrière, and also to find such unknown tribal groups disconnected from the modern world and establish connections between them and the outside world. These were his two main desires. Venturing deep into forests is a daring adventure, and someone interested in such stories might also develop interest in other adventurous tales. Hence, another wish Ghinsberg had was to sail alone and conquer all the seas, especially the seven seas. But he was young then, only about 18 or 19 years old, and couldn't immediately act on these desires because Israel had mandatory military service. So he enlisted in the army, served for the required term, and only after that could he leave the country. At age 19, he joined the Israeli army and served for about 3 years. By 1981, he retired from compulsory military service. After that, his goal was to earn enough money to fulfill his dreams of traveling and adventure. He first went to Norway and worked in a construction company, struggling hard with building jobs. After that, he moved to Alaska in the USA, where he took up a tougher job, fishing in the open sea. These jobs were not easy at all. After saving some money, he was ready to start his travels and fulfill his dream of meeting Henry Charrière. However, before starting, he tried gambling in Las Vegas to double his money, but lost it all. With no money left, he faced a dilemma. To travel, he needed funds, so he decided to find work again. He went to New York, met his friend's uncle, and secured a job there for some time. Later, he moved to Africa, where he bought old music records in bulk and resold them in African markets, making steady profits. He was careful to save money now, having learned from his gambling loss. He began saving little by little and spent time traveling in trucks that transported these music records from one place to another. With these savings, he planned to fulfill his first dream, to meet Henry Charrière. But just then, he heard the news that Henry Charrière had died. This was a huge disappointment for him. His life felt meaningless, but he didn't give up. He still had goals and desires to discover. The next goal was to go deep into the Amazon forest. To do that, he needed to travel to South America. Once there, he realized many governments had already been trying to civilize and integrate the tribal people living deep in the forest in a modern society. In many Latin and South American countries, tribal groups were already in some form of contact with the outside world. So Ghinsberg realized his goal of finding tribes completely disconnected from the world was difficult. Governments were already working to integrate them. He was disheartened, but kept moving forward. While traveling in South America, his goal became travel itself. He hitchhiked and met various people, eventually reaching Colombia. There he met a Swiss backpacker named Marcus Stamm, who shared similar interests and desires to explore. They became good friends and started traveling together. Eventually, they arrived in Bolivia, where they met a geologist named Karl Ruprechter. Karl shared their interest in the forest and revealed a secret. Somewhere in the Amazon, a treasure is hidden. Karl knew where it was, and if they worked together, they might find it. However, Karl needed help for the journey. Marcus, Yossi, Karl, and a photographer named Gale, who was passionate about nature and indigenous people, formed a group to venture into the Amazon jungle. Following the Tuichi River, they trekked deep into the jungle. They had all necessary equipment: compasses, hunting tools, tents, food, and water. The journey was tough. They often got tired and ran low on food, forcing them to consider hunting animals like monkeys for survival. At one point, Karl insisted on shooting a monkey for food, but Kevin protested strongly, wanting to save the animal. Eventually, when the group was starving and out of options, even Kevin had to eat the monkey to survive. Days passed, food supplies dwindled, and they kept moving without knowing where the treasure was or where to go. Karl kept the group moving forward, but doubts arose about whether they should turn back. They pushed on for 4 years. One day, they found a small village near the forest edge, where people lived in connection with the forest. Seeing well-dressed outsiders, the villagers warned them not to proceed further as the forest was dangerous. The group felt fear but decided to build a raft to navigate the river and return home. While rafting down the river, the Tuichi split into 2 branches. Karl urged them to stop, sensing danger ahead. Kevin maneuvered the raft to the side, but Karl decided to go alone further into the forest, warning the others not to continue on that path. A conflict arose, but finally, Kevin and Yossi decided to return via the river, while Karl and Marcus continued searching for the treasure. While rafting, the group encountered a massive waterfall. The raft was caught in the current, and Yossi, holding onto the side, was swept down the waterfall into a deep pool surrounded by rocks. Miraculously, he survived without injury but was now stranded alone in the dense Amazon forest. Despite hardships and exhaustion, Yossi kept going, driven by the hope of finding the treasure and reconnecting with the outside world. Thinking, "I must escape," Yossi started walking along the riverbank, moving steadily forward. Days passed, many days, as he survived by eating small fruits, leaves, and tiny creatures he found lying around. He kept moving forward through the forest. His body was constantly weakening. Walking alone through this dense jungle was no easy task. The nights were extremely hot and humid, making it hard for him to walk and even harder to sleep. Darkness hid many unseen creatures that could attack him, adding to his fear and exhaustion. After about 19 days, Yossi realized his strength was completely gone. He collapsed in a weakened state. His body was covered in wounds, caused by insects and lack of proper food and rest. Many wounds had become infected with fungus, and his legs were filthy with pus and dirt. He wished he could walk even a little more, but as he looked around, he saw a large number of ants crawling on a nearby tree. Thinking carefully, he decided to use the ants to his advantage. He let the ants crawl slowly onto his body. When ants bite, the body produces steroids naturally, which eased his pain and gave him a sudden burst of energy. Using this energy, he managed to walk a little further. Eventually, however, his consciousness faded, and he collapsed onto the ground, thinking his life had ended. But he woke up to the sound of a boat engine. When he opened his eyes, he saw people taking him onto a boat. At first, Yossi couldn't understand what was happening. Later, he learned the full story. His friend Gale had made it out of the jungle and was rescued by local fishermen, who took him to a nearby village. Once safe, Kevin informed the authorities that Yossi was missing deep in the forest. A search mission was launched, and after nearly 3 weeks of intense searching, Yossi was finally found by a local rescue team. Just in time, barely alive. He was immediately taken for medical care and spent nearly 3 months recovering in a hospital, battling infections, extreme exhaustion, and the emotional trauma of survival. Once recovered enough to speak to the authorities, Yossi recounted the entire story and made a chilling discovery. The man who had led them into the jungle, Karl Ruprechter, was not a real geologist at all. He was actually a wanted criminal being tracked by Interpol. All of Karl's stories about treasure, tribal people, and his jungle expertise were complete fabrications. His real motives were unclear, possibly gold or other illegal ventures. But his deception had put all their lives at risk. You might wonder, what happened to Marcus Stamm? And what about Karl Ruprechter, the criminal wanted by Interpol? The truth is still unknown. Both men vanished deep inside the Amazon jungle and were never found. Years have passed, but no one has been able to locate them. Perhaps they died in some accident, but nothing is confirmed. Both are officially declared missing. Yossi survived a strange and incredible experience in the jungle and later wrote about it in 2 books, Back from Tuichi, 1993, and Laws of the Jungle, published in 2008. Initially, these books were published only in Israel, but later translated into about 15 languages due to their popularity. In 2017, a Hollywood movie titled Jungle was released, based on this true story. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and leave a comment.